We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you joined us. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded and we'll be posting it to our YouTube channel, so you will have access to it later, as well as all the resources we'll be sharing. So you can take notes, of course, but know that it'll be there for you later. And we have a very exciting agenda for you today. Today's webinar is all about how Jotform Enterprise drives organizational efficiency. And we're really excited to have a guest today to explain firsthand how she has launched Jotform at her organization and how it has helped her across the board, both teachers and staff and students. So we're very excited to do this for you. We hope you find at least one idea today to help you be more efficient in your workday. So as I mentioned, we have a very exciting agenda today. First, we'll start off with talking about why workflows are important, why they are helpful, how you can use them, and different ways they can be very, very simple for simple processes, or you can expand upon them to have very multiple steps across teams, lots of different players involved in your workflows. We'll be doing a demo of workflow just to give you an idea of how that works. And then we'll also be going over our new assignee column and tables. And then, as I mentioned, we have a guest today from Odyssey Charter Schools who will be sharing her experience. And then lastly, we will have some additional resources for you so you can dig into this a little deeper on your own time and learn more all about workflows and driving efficiency with Jotform Enterprise. So without further ado, let's get started. I'd like to introduce Steve Hartert. He's our VP of Sales and Operations at Jotform Enterprise. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Lainey. It's my pleasure to be here and love talking about our new feature, which is approvals. And honestly, I think, and I'm not trumpeting too much here, but I think it's actually one of our coolest features we've ever put in place for Jotform. It kind of is at the heart of what data is, right? You collect data, but then you need to process that data in some way. And every company, I don't care if you're large or small, you have a workflow of some type, whether it's a sales ticket comes in, or it's a support ticket comes in, or it's somebody asking for a vacation request. You have to sit there and deal with it. And there's a process of how it's supposed to follow. And so what this does is it gets rid of a lot of that kind of just that back and forth emailing system that, hey, can I have time off next week? And we've got a new sales process, or did somebody get back to this customer? It eliminates a lot of that kind of mess and that kind of just nonsense that gets in the way of trying to do everything. And plus, you can also, you can sit there and make this thing as complex as you need it to be and take these really complex problems and make them very simple to work with, right? So if you have multiple people that need to, approve something before it actually has a final decision, maybe you're buying the big ticket item for your company, and it's got to go through several levels of purchasing and approvals. And this is a way that it doesn't just clog up somebody's inbox until they're ready to do the approval on that. So, it's a big time saver because it's not this back and forth, making sure you have the right attachments or the paperwork is brought with it, anything like that. It's all combined into one nice little system. And again, you can design it to whatever you want it to be. And this is, again, the beauty of it, that level of customization that makes it fit for your needs specifically. You're not trying to put those square pegs into round holes anymore. You're actually just making this thing total customized for what you want it to be. So why don't we kind of jump in real quick, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can build a workflow and show you how this whole thing kind of operates. So Lenny, can you give me control of my screen here? Can I share my screen? Sorry, we have a little technical issue here. Bear with me for a second here. Sorry, this was working earlier in rehearsal. Here we go. I'll be right back, people. Bear with me for a second.
Steve's just refreshing his screen. So in the meantime, I just want to mention that while you're working on your approvals, they coordinate with Jotform tables. So if you're not familiar with them, it's tied to your forms, it's tied to your tables, and they work with emails as well. So we can email. Are you all set, Steve? Should I?
I think so, yes. I don't know what was
Okay.
going on there, but I think we're good. So let's let me jump back into this and share if I can share my screen. There we go. I think it's going to work now. Okay.
Great.
You just move this down to the bottom. So can you see my screen? Okay. So what I've done is I've just created very, kind of your basic rudimentary form, right? Let's just say this is just a kind of your standard vacation request form, right? You're working for the Acme company and you want to ask for a time off. And that's really all there is to it, right? So you get your name, your email address, which department you work for, and then which dates you want off. So very straightforward form. I'm not going to show you how we build all of this because it's all there. But I want to actually create now an approval for this. And very simple how to do this. We're going to build it from scratch rather than going through a template. So the form I want to add to this is going to be the one I just showed you. We're going to do an approval. We just drag that in there. And now we want to make a couple of decisions, right? To either approve or deny. That's all we have to do here. So we're going to come in here. That is going to become an email. And then we just drag this over. And what's the action going to be? Well, if we say it's approve, it does this. We'll do another one over here. And we'll add an action for that. And that'll be deny. Pretty straightforward. And then we're just going to do end of the flow when everything is done. And we just drag these over. And now you've got a workflow. That's it. That's how easy it is to go ahead and build a workflow. And this is a very simple, it comes in, I'm going to approve and I'm going to deny, and that's all there is to it. So it's a yes or no kind of an answer. I want to show you this one here. This one's a little bit more involved, and hopefully you can see this. But this is much more sophisticated kind of a workflow, right? There's multiple levels of approvals. This is about talking about things go through different levels and such like that. So as groups, your needs increase, you could make this thing as, again, sophisticated as you need it to be and as complex as you need it to be. But it's actually very, very simple, as I showed, how it's very simple to go ahead and build one of these things. So let's go ahead and just give it a test real quick, and I'll show you how this actually reacts. So we're going to go ahead and publish it. We'll open it up in a new tab. And I'm just going to say my name is John Smith. And I'll plug in my Jotform email so we can see it real quick. And let's say I work for the marketing department, and I'm going to take, let's just say I'm going to take Monday off. Submit that. So now this gets submitted. You get the approval. If I go to my inbox, you're going to see that there is a, oops. Where'd it go? Here it is. Sorry, too many things in my inbox. This is what you get. You get an approve or deny, right? So I can sit here and just say approve this or deny it. Here's John Smith, marketing department is asking for this time off on this date. Approve it. John Smith gets an email back that says your request has been approved or your request has been denied. And it's really that simple. So this is how fast and simple you can actually build one of these things. And again, as many levels of approvals or denies that you want to put into it, you can. So that's that's it. I mean, again, you can take this thing down to the most basic level and take a very complex kind of an approval chain, drag and drop your pieces into it, and you can customize the emails that get sent out, everything like you can do in standard Jotform. But this is it. That's how difficult it is to build a workflow, which is not very difficult at all. So we did one here in less than a minute. So, but then the other part of this is you can also go ahead and you can see how this thing works inside of your, if you can have a table of data. So let me just close this for a second. Let me go back. Let me go to a table. And now I've got my standard table of data that's come in here. And I'm going to go ahead and add assignee because I'm going to want to send this to somebody else, right? If this comes in, I'm just going to call this assign. notifications. I'm not going to do multiple. I'm just going to do a single person, create a column for it. And when that assign comes up, you just have to add somebody's email address in here, right, for that assign process. That's it. And again, you can add as many in there as you want, or one person or a dozen. It's up to you how you want to do this. So not very difficult at all. Very, very simple. I think that's one of the main things that we do at Jotform is make the complex very easy to do. So it's kind of a great tool. Any company can use this. And again, for any kind of level, it's very simple to customize. So if you've got somebody in HR, right, that does all the standard vacation approvals or PTO approval requests when somebody's asking for time off, if that person's going to be on vacation, you can make a workflow. It's going to go to somebody else because maybe they want to delegate that to another person while the main person's absent. So come in here, change it up a little bit. Everything works fine. When the person comes back, you just go back to where it was, and the same processes work back and forth. But not difficult at all to produce one of these things, as I've shown. But I think one of the exciting parts here is we've got actually a special guest with us today. We've got Melanie Dunlop with us, and she is from the state of Nevada Odyssey Charter School system. And Melanie has been doing this. They've created some really cool stuff over there in their operations. So I'm going to turn the wheel over to Melanie, let her talk about what she's done and how they use it.
Okay, it's nice to see everybody. Lainey has my slides. So basically, we decided to use this program because it was on the suggestion of my husband, and he works in the IT department at Odyssey Charter School. And so your product kind of came to us out of him searching for that information, but also out of the need based upon the fact that we obviously face the pandemic like everybody else. But if you can go to the next slide, Lainey. We also faced, oh, that's so pretty. Good. That's our school, by the way. We're very much a storefront, and I'll show you that on one of the later slides, what it looks like, because it doesn't look like a traditional school. And that's because it's a hybrid online, meaning students must come on campus at least one day a week for 4 hours. So, okay, next one. So basically, you guys can see where in Las Vegas our school is located, yet the way that schooling is done in the state of Nevada is that each county is a district. And so that's unique to us. Not many states choose to do that. And so what you can see is that's just the city of Las Vegas. Obviously, all of Clark County is very big, and there's 320,000 students in the school district. So it is the 5th largest district. But you can imagine if somebody lived down that red line or up that blue line, how difficult it would be to drive down and pick up a packet that previously was 17 pages of paper. And as cutting edge as Odyssey was with so many things online and education, they've been doing this since like 2001. And, the pandemic hits and people are scrambling and teachers don't know how to teach online. Odyssey's been doing it since then. They were just so incredible. But still, how are we going to get this 17-page, sheet of paper packet to these parents if they're, nervous to sit on a bus, or they can't commute, or it's just difficult? So let's reach out and use Jotform. So next slide. The other problem that Odyssey faced was that if you see the building at the very top, that's the one that you saw the picture of, and you see a lovely parking lot. And so it's very strip mall, in its presentation. So obviously there's no connecting corridors. And during the pandemic, if we were trying to keep staff loads down and people, away from the face-to-face contact, then Jotforms allows that by being online. And that was such a blessing for these people to be able to still handle all of the paperwork coming in from the parents online, and then also not having to pass from office to office to office. Additionally, as you know, in Vegas, we do reach temperatures of 115 to 120 sometimes. And that asphalt, when you're walking across it in the middle of the day, is virtually treacherous. And so if we can keep staff inside, whether it's raining or it's exceptionally sunny out, it's just wonderful to be able to speed up the process and make us more efficient, because we're not spending time walking from building to building, but also keeping us out of the elements from doing that. So go ahead to the next slide. Now, the storage of data. Previously to this, I was the testing coordinator at Odyssey Charter School for K through 12, and that's the school. There are about 2,400 students at Odyssey completely for the through the K through 12 system. And so data was very important to my job. data justifies finances for everything in the state of Nevada. And I'm pretty positive it's going to be that way across the United States, because obviously funding is primarily done by each state, and each student matters. So each student is worth the money to carry them through that entire year. And so keeping control of that data is so very important. Specific dates when your product timestamps, very, very important to us, because that could be the money allotment for that next month. And we don't want to lose that money, or else it's just devastating to our finances. So the storage of data, we typically had cume folders, and that would, of course, keep floor space on such a small building. And you run out after a while. You've been open for this long. But then if you go down to where the reporting of data is, you'll notice that it does allow us to download and manipulate, and staff does not have to then take that 17-page packet and input it. So that saves so much time with that. And then when it comes to students receiving federal funding for Title I money, that's the free and reduced lunch information, we're allowed to collect that data and manipulate it so that we can report to the federal government to see if we qualify for that money. It also is enrollment date, and that goes back to how it is determined that the state will fund us. So October 1st is a very important date in the state of Nevada and in Clark County. Not only that, but with the health data. So in the registration packets, which was the first packet that I attempted, which was definitely a bit of baptism by fire because it's exceptionally large and hugely important to us. We have to collect information if a child is anaphylaxis, if a child is a diabetic, any of these types of information where when the child is around us or if it impacts their education, we need to understand that. And so we had to ask those questions to make sure that our school was prepared for those kids and that those kids were appropriate for the setting that we were providing. It also allows the document uploads. During this time, we must have immunization records, driver's license, previous transcripts, any of that type of information. And Jotform does that because obviously we can upload that information directly. We put in some tutorials, teaching parents how to use their phones to scan or to take pictures and to upload those documents, and they seem to respond exceptionally well. So it's been a great situation for that. And of course, the counselors like to use it because they can go directly in. We ask them scheduling questions, hey, what do you need? What type of class do you want? On a scale of 1 to 6, what would you like with this? And so the counselors were able to go directly in there and also schedule from that system and then put them into the correct classes prior to school starting, and to reflect back upon, the other information that is used through, it's called Infinite Campus, that the district uses. So I was looking at this program and it just seemed like your Jotform had so much to offer because schools needed to be take that face-to-face aspect away. We needed to get rid of the paper. And then not only that, but in the state of Nevada, there's 38 charter schools, which are site-based managed. So typically, people complain that I want my money as a principal, but I want to decide how to spend it, but the district is deciding how to spend it. Well, charter schools are typically site-based managed. The state just hands the funding over and they have their own boards quite frequently, and then they get to decide how that money is spent. So they could choose a program like Jotform without having to go through the several levels of approvals that a typical district may require. In Colorado, there's like 260 charter schools. In California, I think there's over 1,500 charter schools. So you look at this charter school system or even the private school system, and they're able to make decisions within their site to use your product. And it is an incredible product. What Steve was discussing, that's our next layer we're moving on to. I've been approved to use timesheets through Jotform. For all of the reasons I've listed, that's why we're going to use timesheets, and we're using signature approval, Steve. So that's what we're going to be using with that. You can go to the next slide. So I hope that this summarizes it really well as far as why we used Jotform and the advantages that it gave to us. This was just kind of some of the ways that, brought us to this decision, brought the directors to the decisions and the administrative staff. There were so many positives to this particular program. And we were just so, just willing to go out there and try something new, which is very hard for education. If you have any relatives in that field, it can be difficult, but also to, we felt that it was protected. We have that HIPAA server. We're able to express to our parents, everything is safe. We have your stuff and it's protected. And, you know, our school was breached about 2 years ago by ransomware. And so we really respect protected servers. So that's all the information that I have. You guys can always ask questions, but I don't want to keep you here too long and I want to respect your time. So thank you so much.
It's great. Melanie, I do have a question for you. How much time do you think overall this has saved you? Beyond just like the amount of paper, but I mean, just in time savings, how much time do you think this has
So
saved you
there's
guys?
so many individuals within that equation because there is front office staff, high school and elementary and middle school. And so when you take that and divide that out, just the finances of, you know, I would tell them we're reducing the paper supply and printing purchases and cost of that. So that takes a reduction of that. You know, how many hours does it take for staff to put every one of those packets together? You figure if we have 2,400 students, those are just the 2,400 that accepted. That doesn't mean we didn't have 3,000 people come pick packets up. So 3,000 packets that just had to be prepared. Not only that, we had to input the data by hand. So you can imagine exponentially how many hours that could possibly be. And I certainly would have to ask one of the people in that front office, you know, how many hours do you think this is going to save you? But I do know that when they speak to me, they say, it's just so nice to have it right there. So
That sounds awesome. Yeah, again, the time saving on this, like we mentioned earlier, and as you perfectly illustrated, I mean, the time savings on this is just, it's almost immeasurable, really, because it's just such a phenomenal adjustment in how we go about doing things. So, Melanie, I guess we can switch over to the next slide. Do you want to take it from here?
Yep, thank you so much. That's great. Thank you so much, Melanie, for presenting. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us. It is a phenomenal one, and we're excited for the next chapter. We're definitely going to have you back when you've had your next round of Jotform exploration. So very excited that it's working for you guys and you've been able to do such a great job sharing it across your organization. So really tremendous, and congratulations to you. I do want to mention, we do have a question in the chat. Steve, I thought you might want to answer this. Somebody's asking if approvers need to have a Jotform account.
No, they don't. They get the email and they just approve. And this is where that assignee feature comes in, right? You just add an email, that person gets email, they hit deny, approve, and off and running. So the short answer, no, they do not.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, that concludes our webinar for today. As I mentioned, we do have some other resources for you here. I kept the links up for you so you can copy them down. And again, this will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. So you'll have that for future reference as well. And also check out our blog. There are guides, there are video tutorials, there's all kinds of information. And we do have our case study with Odyssey Charter Schools, where you can dig in a little deeper, learn more about Melanie and her journey and everything she's done at Odyssey Charter Schools. But thank you so much for joining us today, and make sure to come back next time. We have lots of more content for you, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much.